Welcome back from the Labor Day holiday and welcome to September. This is when things start to get really, really politically interesting. So we'll start with our Swamp Watch today. The plot thickens in this sordid tale of Adam Schiff's unbelievable level of corruption. New evidence has emerged, brought forward by my next guest, Christine Bish, that not only did Adam Schiff commit mortgage fraud, but he roped his wife into the whole affair as well. What a sweetheart he is. That's true love. Recently, Schiff's great white whale President Donald J. Trump weighed in on the matter on his Truth Social page, saying, quote, "I have always suspected Shifty Adam Schiff was a scam artist. And now I learned that Fannie Mae's Financial Crimes Division have concluded that Adam Schiff has engaged in a sustained pattern of possible mortgage fraud." Adam Schiff said that his primary residence was in Maryland to get a cheaper mortgage and rip off America when he must live in California because he was a congressman from California. I've always known as Shifty Schiff, Adam Schiff was a crook. This isn't going away, as much as Schiff might like it to, because there's now a paper trail showing that fraud was perpetrated. What's more, there are multiple interviews over the years in which Schiff confirms his great lie that as an elected official representing California in Washington, D.C., his home in Maryland was his secondary residence. Here he is not too long ago telling a reporter just that.
But our principal residence, our primary residence is in California. It always has been and always will be.
Apparently not. And it never was. Adam Schiff, likely to avoid California's insanely high taxes that he votes for and advocates for the rest of the country to emulate, has parked himself in Maryland and committed mortgage fraud. This is the guy who literally spent the last decade calling Trump a liar and a crook. Projection has always been a Democrat superpower. We're now joined by Christine Bish. She's the one who found this information about the Schiff family's involvement in the scheme, and she's running for California's 6th congressional district, in which she actually lives and has her primary residence, I suspect. It's good to see you, Christine.
Yes.
Imagine that.
Good morning. Exactly. Good morning. Yes, I do live here in a little suburb area. It's called Antelope, California. And I am a resident of the 6th district. Now, let me correct something here, or just clarify. Adam Schiff only needed to live in the state of California to legally represent us. You can live anywhere in the state, but he was 3,000 miles away.
Yeah, he was all the way in Maryland, literally on the other coast in the DMV swamp adjacent. He was swamp adjacent, let's say, which he fits in quite well. Christine, let's talk about this process. This has become a big thing now. Everyone's talking about it, but you did this research some years ago. It's taken a while for it to actually get attention. And obviously, Adam Schiff is on his heels. He's having to respond. You can tell he seems to be worried about this. Tell us about the process of finding this information. And then you have obviously given this to the Trump administration, right?
Okay. Yeah, you are correct. I did turn it over to FHFA. It started out believe it or not, in 2019, the end of 2019. I had won my primary. I was running in the California 6th Congressional District against a representative by the name of Doris Matsui. And it was my first time running for office, and I won the primary and had really no clue what I was doing. And so the first thing I said to myself is, where does Doris live? I know she doesn't live in California. Where does she live? And as I started doing the opposition research on Doris Matsui, that's when I started running into Adam Schiff. He was doing the same things. Then comes November, I did not win my race against Doris, did better than anybody had thought, and really self-funded that campaign. And I've learned a lot since then. But when that case was done, I knew I had to keep going. And so do I keep going after Doris, because we're into redistricting, or do I go after the man who tried to ruin this country, the man who took down the president of the United States? And by the way, that was a scary task, and we can talk about that in a minute. So I really started doubling down in 2021 on Adam Schiff. And it took 4 years, not full time. This was my hobby, if you will, digging into his mortgage documents, his tax documents. And then in 23, actually, it was July of 2023, we went down to Southern California on a trip. And I went into the voter registrar's office to get certified copies of Adam Schiff's voter registration forms. And I was entitled to them as a candidate and was able to get certified copies going back to the 90s to prove what they were was proof that he had registered to vote multiple times down in LA. Each time he changed these little rental apartments, but the dates corresponded with refinances in Maryland. So I am not going to argue that he is a resident of California, that he was duly elected to office, and I say that he committed mortgage fraud. Now, if his defense, that which we saw in the video, which was after one of my complaints to the House Ethics Committee had been put out in the public, is, well, I'm a resident of California. Well, then you committed mortgage fraud. But if he tries to say, well, this is our primary residence, which is what's notarized, which is on the documents, then he has some questions to answer is why on the election paperwork and candidate paperwork and your voter registration did you claim to be a resident of California? And there is a weird tie-in, believe it or not, to RFK Jr.
How so? That's interesting. We're going to spend the most of the show talking about RFK Jr. today and the good things he's doing. So what?
And the good things that he's doing. So, I had originally submitted this. It was, I think it was April or June of 2023, and we've got the email receipt from the Congressional Ethics Committee, right? And that story had come out. But we're in the election, and if you remember, RFK Jr. was kicked off the ballot in New York. A bunch of liberals brought about this civil case claiming that he wasn't really a resident of New York, that he was actually a resident of California. And they cited that he had a room that he was renting in New York. Now, in that judge's ruling, and I think it was like 35 pages, I'm doing this from memory, she wrote this huge scathing ruling in the RFK Jr. case. And what she had put in there is the precedence that was set by RFK Jr., why they justified kicking him off the ballot. Because they said that the room that he was renting in New York could not have possibly been a residence that would fit him, his children, his wife, and his possessions. And so when I resubmitted this report to in 2024 with the House Ethics Committee, I included that. I had updated my complaint and actually had doubled the size. The original complaint was about 165 pages. It actually doubled. It went up over 300. But what was in there was Adam Schiff, when he first moved to Maryland, he sold his house in Burbank, bought a house in Maryland, rented a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, 600 square foot apartment in Burbank. And there is no way, and that's where he registered to vote, and his wife registered to vote. There is no way, based on the case in New York, that Adam Schiff, his wife, his 2 children, any pets, and their possessions could possibly occupy that space as a primary residence. So that is the weird RFK Jr. tie-in. And so that gives us, for a federal office, it gives us the precedence, even though that was a civil case. And this is, Adam Schiff is being tried on federal charges. But it does set, it's an amazing case. And RFK Jr. did a great job defending himself. But the truth is the truth. He is a resident of California.
Yeah. So you originally submitted this in 2023. It's just now getting traction. So you submitted it to the House Ethics Committee. Were the Republican members of Congress responsive to your ethics complaint?
Not at all. I got the email receipt, and I had brought in other people to help me who supposedly had access to members of Congress to get this looked at, and we just didn't get anywhere. I know they had national media had put out there that documents have surfaced. Well, they didn't just surface. The Tooth Fairy didn't drop them off. I had years of work in this, and it just wasn't picking up steam in 23. So I was actually working with Seamus Brunner and John Solomon, Peter Schweitzer's team. They're the ones that challenged me. They went through everything that I had in 2023 and were asking me more questions, more sources. And as they challenged me as an investigator, more evidence surfaced, and the report grew to over 300 pages. And we had submitted that, or I had submitted it on October 16th of 2024. And that's when that video that you showed, it was actually October of 24. And it was a local TV station up here in Sacramento, KCRA. It's a NBC affiliate, I believe it is. And they tracked him down and asked him those questions. Now, the reporter didn't understand the depth of the case, so he gave this kind of excuse answer. I'm a resident of California, always had been. He should have had an attorney then, because he just admitted that he committed mortgage fraud. But I had brought in a friend of mine, guy named Darren Ellis, and he's a legal researcher. So I had Darren going through every piece of evidence, all of the laws, everything that I was citing, to make sure that I've dotted every I, crossed every T. And then, nothing happened in 2024 with House Ethics. All I got was an email receipt that I had submitted it. So what was important was the Letitia James case. Sam Antar was doing an investigation on her in New York the same time I was doing Adam Schiff in California. Now, we had never met, never spoke, didn't even know each other existed. And the timing was just amazing. But what I noticed is, to get the criminal referral, he did not go through House Ethics. He went through FHFA, which the director for that is Director Pulte. I submitted that on April 30th with a full file of 2024. I'm sorry, 2025. It was this year, April 30th. July 15th, my phones are blowing up. People are calling me from all over the country, knew that I was doing that President Trump had just put this on Truth Social with one of the documents that was included in the file. And I was vindicated at that point. All this work, all the years, all the naysayers, and it was finally got noticed. But the following day, when we were able to see the referral, the criminal referral, that was on May 27th. And I just, the gravity of that, all these years working on it, sending it to Congress twice, sending it everywhere. But with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the FHFA, they got it on April 30th, 2025. Yeah. We had the criminal referral by May 27th, less than 30 days. Nothing happens in the federal government in less than 30 days.
It usually doesn't. This is amazing. And it definitely doesn't happen in Congress, as you noted. So it's almost a futile effort to submit an ethics claim. And I suspect it's because there's probably quite a few Republican members of Congress doing this as well. And obviously there's more Democrats. You mentioned Letitia James, and now there's Lisa Cook, who Trump has fired from the Federal Board of Governors, Federal Reserve Board of Governors. She has a Trump-friendly judge, an anti-Trump friendly to her judge. So we'll see if she actually has any kind of repercussions. But this is interesting. We're out of time, Christine, but I've been following this for a couple years because it was put on my radar, the research that you were doing. And so it's good to see that someone's taking it seriously, and there might actually be accountability, because it's not just important for the people of California, it's important for the American people. Representatives don't get to just, take a pass on this and do what other people can't do. Christine, you are running in California's 6th district, so we'll have you back soon to talk more about that as well.
Excellent. And remember, Marilyn Mosby was convicted in Maryland for the same thing.
And we'll leave it at that.
We
We'll
already
be
have
watching.
a
Thank you,
conviction.
Christine. There's
Thank you.
precedence.
Yes.
Thanks, Christine. Up next, why is Trump seeming to be, playing ball with China? Well, Brandon Weicker thinks he has the answer to that, and he joins us after the break.
Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet. Get Nirvanta instead and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com. Use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health. Live well naturally.
Welcome to Vocal, the free speech social app that gives you a platform to amplify your voice. Speak freely, connect boldly, and be part of a growing movement for truth, faith, and freedom. Want to know what's happening right now? The Now Playing feature shows you exactly who's live and what's streaming in real time. Check out the show's feed, a non-stop lineup including Lindell TV News 24/7, shows and on-demand programming all in one place. Connect with your favorite host and never miss a show. Explore the featured page for quick access to Lindell TV's top shows. Follow your favorites and watch their newest content flow right into your feed. And when they go live on Vocal, you can join the live chat and be part of the action. Ask questions, share your thoughts, even help shape future shows. Stay informed on issues around securing our elections by following your state's Cause of America account. Join a group and connect on a deeper level, from faith and freedom to the future of our nation. Go to vocal.com or download the app today and be a part of the mission to save our country.
President Donald Trump is pushing to bring in 600,000 Chinese students in addition to the 500,000 that are already here. In fact, according to the BBC, the president is doubling down despite the massive pushback from his bag of base. Why is President Trump seemingly reversing course on the tough policies regarding China that dominated his first term in office? This is a question plaguing many people on the right. It's actually brought Laura Loomer and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene together, probably briefly. It could be because Trump is under China's thumb on the issue of rare earth minerals. Here is how one report broke down the utter dependence the U.S. has on rare earth minerals. They write, quote, many American companies keep little or no inventory because they do not want to tie up cash in stockpiles of costly materials. One of the metals subject to the new controls, dysprosium oxide, trades for $204 per kilogram in Shanghai and much more outside of China. If the reason for Trump's 180-degree reversal on standing firm against China and Chinese student visas isn't the rare earth mineral issue, which China for now does admittedly have all the advantages over the U.S., then nothing else makes sense. It's as if Trump has had a brain transplant on the matter of standing firm on China. I'm joined now by Brandon J. Weichert. He's the host of America's Out Loud show, the National Security Hour, which airs every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on iHeartRadio networks. Brandon, I don't think Trump has had such a total reversal. I think that is something, perhaps the rare earth minerals, that makes sense. Explain a little bit more.
Yeah, so basically, for over a decade, I've been warning the Chinese, the government about China's hold on rare earth minerals. This is the stuff we need to build our advanced technology. Even something like smartphones and laptops need rare earth minerals. China spent about a decade purchasing or gaining control over around 90% of the global rare earth mineral stockpile. What's more, China has the most amount of rare earth mineral refinement capacity. And it's going to take years for us to stand up our own systems to compete with China. And Trump knows that. So Trump starts the trade war with China in his second term. He's right to do that. Unfortunately, the Chinese played hardball and in April threatened to cut us off from those rare earth minerals. We don't have a backstop. We don't have a secondary avenue. So Trump now is having to play nice, at least until some deal can be crafted with China, which I think is part of the reason why he's suddenly allowing or wants to allow 600,000 Chinese students here. It's because the Chinese have him, as you say, under their thumb right now.
It's interesting. I actually was looking at that chart. I didn't know Estonia, which is a tiny country, supplied 6% of our rare earth minerals. That's very interesting. How long will it take us to get rare earth mineral independent?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what happened in 2010 when the Chinese tried this for the first time, the Japanese and the Australians and us were able to come together and find out workarounds. Unfortunately, China has only increased their capabilities at both rare earth mineral production and refinement, and we have not. So there's something that Trump should be doing right now. Get his EPA guys together and write a bunch of executive orders to change the way that the EPA will enforce environmental regulations over the rare earth mineral industry here in the United States so that it allows for rare earth mineral mining companies to not only be started, but to actually possibly make a profit without the government coming down on them for pollution or global warming or whatever. We haven't had a new rare earth mineral mining facility created in this country since the 1970s, and we've only got a handful of them already. So we haven't had many. We need to build out more because the United States is sitting on a bevy of untapped rare earth minerals. And as long as those things remain in the ground and unable to be refined here, China has all the advantages. Another thing, Emerald, he could be doing, Trump, is ending the Ukraine war so that he can start doing rare earth mineral mining deals with Russia because they've got tens of millions of cubic meters of untapped rare earths. And we know that Putin wants to do business with America to help get their rare earth mineral mining operation going, but they can't do it as long as this war is going on, and the war is pushing Russia and China closer together against us.
That's a great point, and I think a valid solution, right? You just named two valid solutions. Maybe Russia, the immediate, working on these executive orders and taking advantage of America's rare earth minerals via the EPA route would be great. And here's the thing. I don't think that Trump is so committed to the 600,000 Chinese students because this would be it doesn't line up with what Secretary Pete Hegseth is doing at the Defense Department, right?
That's right.
Because he just canceled an entire program at the Pentagon that outsourced the coding for sensitive military programs to Chinese researchers. I mean, how bad is that was even going on? He did that, I believe, last month. Take a listen to what Hegseth said about that. Listen.
Last month, the Department of Defense was made aware of an Obama-Biden-era legacy program called Digital Escorts. For nearly a decade, Microsoft has used Chinese coders, remotely supervised by U.S. contractors, to support sensitive DoD cloud systems. Program was designed to comply with contracting rules, but it exposed the department to unacceptable risk. I mean, if you're thinking America first and common sense, this doesn't pass either of those tests. So I initiated an immediate review of this vulnerability, and I want to report our initial findings. So the use of Chinese nationals to service Department of Defense cloud environments, it's over.
Yeah.
So obviously, there's still a tough stance on China. I mean, I guess Trump's in a tight spot.
Well, we all are. And, when I was in government, like I said, I was warning people about this. And literally every expert that my team and I met with when I worked on the Hill would literally call me lunatic. This is nuts. But this is the only reason. This is the only way you explain the schizophrenic way that the Trump administration is handling China. On the one hand, they're starting the trade war, and they're right to do that. But on the other, then they have to play nice. And then they're also, on the other hand, trying to cut off China's access to the Pentagon. It's insane that they even had that level of access, but it just shows you the reason that Trump is doing this with the students. And I think you're right. He's not committed to it. He's just trying to buy time so that he can get a deal with China. But here's the deal. As long as Xi Jinping knows he's got 90% of the world's rare earth minerals, he doesn't have to come to the table at all. He can dangle the prospects of some ambiguous deal and keep Trump strung along, make us look weak, all while Xi is rewriting the rules of the international order, which is what he's doing.
And in the meantime, there could be a deal to end the conflict in Ukraine, right? Which means that he could probably start doing business with Russia. Okay,
that's right. And this is what Trump promised he would do on quote day one. Now we all knew that was him being Trump, but ultimately we took it to mean he was going to get a deal quickly. The opposite's happening, and I can't explain that. It makes no sense to me.
I think it's because of the European leaders that are backing Zelensky and causing problems with getting a deal. Because, honestly, when Trump said he was going to make a deal on day one, I'm like, well, I've seen him do some pretty amazing things. So as impossible as it looked, in Trump world, you can't rule out anything. But yes, I think it's probably the European Union
You're probably
is causing the problems here. But we'll continue to break that down. This is very interesting, and it gives some context to what otherwise might not make sense to the average person. Thank you so much, Brandon J. Weicker, as always.
Thank you, sir, ma'am.
And speaking of Trump changing his mind, it seems he's done an about-face on Operation Warpspeed. But is this so? We'll discuss with Gray Delaney, formerly of HHS, right after this commercial break.
Let's face it, you can't trust Big Pharma. They've already tried to block ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and raise prices on everything from antibiotics to your daily meds. Well, there's good news. All Family Pharmacy is standing up for medical freedom and helping people get the treatments they actually want. My family and I use them all the time. They made it easy and affordable without the runaround. While other pharmacies are jacking up prices, they've actually dropped theirs. Ivermectin now starts at just $2 a capsule. Use my promo code Lindell10, you get an extra 10% off of that. You need ivermectin, antibiotics, or methylene blue, you name it, they've got it. They make it simple. You fill out a short online form, a licensed doctor reviews it, and your meds ship fast right to your front door. If you want to be prepared and have your medications on hand, this is your new pharmacy. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell. Promo code Lindell10 saves you even more. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Lindell. Promo code Lindell10. With everybody talking about making America healthy again, I thought today'd be a great day to talk to all my fellow patriots about the importance of making your homes healthy again. Well, we have proudly partnered with airwaterhealing.com and their revolutionary whole home air purification system. The V3 from Air Water Healing does 3,000 square feet of purification. It eliminates dust, mold, viruses, and odors. But here's the part I love. They require no filters to ever be changed and virtually no maintenance. Whether you suffer from asthma, allergies, seasonal bronchitis, or just want to protect your family from the flu or even greater threats, don't wait to get your V3 from airwaterhealing.com today. Use code Lindell for 20% off in savings and free shipping. That's promo code Lindell at airwaterhealing.com.
Operation Warpspeed was, whether you're Republican or Democrat, considered one of the most incredible things ever done in this country. The efficiency, the way it was done, the distribution, everything about it has been amazing.
Wow. How things have changed in just a matter of a few days. Now, that was President Donald Trump defending Operation Warp Speed publicly just about a month ago. He even did so as recently as last week. But is Trump now taking the off-ramp in regards to what I call the most insane thing ever done by the U.S. government? It seems so. It seems that someone has finally gotten through to the president about what would have been a permanent stain on his legacy. In a post to Truth Social yesterday, the president said he hopes being the operative word, that Operation Warp Speed is as brilliant as pharma execs at Pfizer have told him it was. But if not, says the president, we all need to know, and why. President Trump pointing out that the pharma companies presented data to him that he says they haven't yet shown to the American people, and he's asking why. And I'm asking, has the Overton window on Operation Warp Speed finally shifted? Well, our good friend Ed Dowd certainly thinks so. He tweeted this, quote, "The Overton window on the poisonous jabs just shifted immensely for the herd today with Trump's post questioning Operation Warp Speed. Prepare for an escalation in propaganda from the vested interest behind this nightmare." Now, this is a huge positive step forward, but it is only a step. And as Ed Dowd noted, dark forces have already been activated to begin the propaganda counter-narrative, as with the 51 intel agents who signed a letter labeling the Hunter Biden laptop as Russian disinformation in 2020 that was, obviously an operation itself. Now have the ousted CDC expert class signed a similar letter suggesting RFK Jr. is the greatest threat to our country at the moment. And as Dr. Robert Malone told us on Friday, there are a lot of moving parts right now. Listen.
A lot of moving parts going on, Emerald, right now. And there is a lot of turnover and churn and turmoil within the CDC, some issues within the FDA, and there is certainly some dissension within the ranks within HHS and the Trump administration. All of those things are true. In terms of the mRNA COVID products, Bobby was quite clear. What has happened here is they finally got to the point where he was able to get consensus within the government that there's no more emergency associated with COVID. Remember, that's the whole basis for this is the emergency use authorization. But Bobby had made a commitment, as you point out during the campaign, that he, quote, wouldn't take anybody's vaccines away from them. That's kind of what's underpinning this. And of course, he made that commitment also to Senator Cassidy during his confirmation hearings. And so this is kind of a split the baby situation. What they did was they removed the EUA and then they gave limited FDA authorization for high-risk groups of various ages, depending on the manufacturer, for receipt of these products, the Moderna product, the Novavax product.
And joining us now is a former senior advisor at the Health and Human Services Department, Mr. Gray Delaney. He is the head of Calamo Press. Gray, how big is this? You just came out of the bureaucracy, right? How big is this that Trump now questions Operation Warp Speed, which he has defended fervently over the last several years?
It's seismic. There was always an overarching tension between Secretary Kennedy, HHS, the Kennedy Maha people, and MAGA over Operation Warp Speed. And I think there was a lot of alignment actually between the MAGA base, who was extremely skeptical of the vaccines and of how the pandemic was handled, and President Trump, who over and over again kept saying was one of his signature achievements. Well, meanwhile, we're seeing significant excess deaths in Japan. We're seeing cancer rates up about 10% over average over pre-COVID. In the United States, we're seeing these rare autoimmune disorders. And so for him to finally acknowledge and show a chink in the armor here on Operation Warp Speed, and we're beginning to see what the off-ramp looks like, I think this is the biggest personally, because I'm so invested in MAHA and especially this mRNA technology, it's what led to my dismissal. That this is one of the most consequential transformations to monitor in the administration. It shows that the secretary has a very strong relationship with the president, and the runway that this gives HHS is huge. So I think that there is a real opportunity here to ultimately, hopefully, pull these shots off the market. And it also, we're getting close to this upcoming report on autism and what is the source and behind the autism epidemic, and then also this upcoming ACIP meeting. So apparently this all started with basically Dr. Recep Levy, who I work with closely at HHS, and after my first couple of conversations back in early mid-July, were like, man, this guy is the real deal, and he is hardcore, and he does not care what the opposition thinks of him. And Dr. Levy is really leading this charge as head of the vaccine subcommittee on ACIP, and he just started asking basic questions about. They submitted these questions to the CDC and said, we need to see the data on the vaccines, on the clinical trials, the safety data, adverse effects. We need to get access to the vaccine safety data system at CDC, which was supposed to become public, which has yet to become public. It's much more comprehensive than VAERS. And basically, they didn't want to be transparent, and they decided to run this opposition campaign through the mainstream media and all their lackeys against Secretary Kennedy. Now you've seen dozens of calls this past weekend, very coordinated, probably led by this biotech innovation organization called BIO, which I know there are several people at HHS currently that have gotten through that are working on behalf of that agenda. And there's several prominent people on the outside that are working on behalf of that agenda. So we are going to expose them. I know you wrote a very good Substack a couple weeks ago on this, but that's only the start. And the sunshine is going to be the best disinfectant, because these people have blood on their hands, and it's not President Trump's fault. He was misled by his advisors. But the truth is ultimately going to come out what happened during COVID, and there's going to be a reckoning for these deadly vaccines that have killed hundreds of thousands and injured millions of people.
You mentioned Dr. Levy. In fact, he just gave an exclusive interview where he detailed what was going on behind the scenes in relation to that data you were talking about. He said in this interview, quote, "But what most people don't know is that in the weeks leading up to his resignation, Daskalakis, I call him Mr. Monkeypox, that's how my audience knows him, had been working with Levy and other members of ACIP, locked in a tense tug of war over how broad the work group's remit would be, as Chair Levy was pushed for a wide lens that would follow the evidence wherever it led. Mr. Monkeypox, on the other hand, pressed to narrow the scope of the review and sought to populate the group with CDC loyalists intent on preserving the status quo. Senior CDC officials opposed to Levy's broader approach were reluctant to sign off on the terms of reference." So now with those people gone, there is an ACIP meeting coming up, right? Here's what Dr. Malone said about what might happen there, and then I'll get your reaction. Let's take a listen.
So that's what's coming down. And if you look at those terms of reference, you will see that there is a granular list of concerns, let's say, about the nature of the data concerning these products and the adverse events. And that will all be thoroughly investigated and under these terms of reference that are public. And you might expect that the findings will be discussed openly at the upcoming ACIP meeting, and they will be the basis for the CDC the ACIP recommendations to the director of the CDC about whether or not these products should be used, and if so, in what way.
So he did say there could be a recommendation about whether or not these products should be used. And then he said there could be some kind of stipulation or recommendation that doctors have to basically give informed consent, right? Tell patients certain information about these products before taking them. How do you see this proceeding? How will the steps flow, Gray?
Well, I was talking to Dr. Levy about this a few weeks ago, and he said there are over 700 studies that show the toxicity of the spike protein. So I can't speak for Dr. Levy, but I would guess that he does not think that the vaccine is safe for anyone, including immunocompromised, high risk, the elderly, etc. Now, there's going to have to be a compromise here. So if I had to guess, I would guess that the COVID vaccines for high-risk individuals, whatever, and I think they're going to define that. And then also for the elderly, it's going to be moved to the shared, the kind of the third level recommendations, which is shared clinical decision making, where the doctor is supposed to provide informed consent, but it's not universally recommended. And then they've already removed the EUA for the rest of the vaccines for healthy adults such as me or you, Emerald. And that, in order to get a COVID vaccine, if you're my age and healthy, it would basically have to be off-label, and then that means that the vaccine companies have liability for injury. So I think if you saw recently, CVS and other pharmacies are not stocking the vaccine for most age groups right now because of the liability issue. So that's huge. So we're moving in the right direction. So I want to prepare people. I don't think it's going to be the ACIP is going to remove or not recommend it entirely. I do think they're going to maintain that because Kennedy can stand behind his original pledge that he's not going to remove access to these vaccines, at least for the most high risk. And the data does show that the vaccine is fairly effective on preventing hospitalization for high risk individuals. Now, hold on. It doesn't mean it's good for it. I mean, that's not taking into account. We need the immunologic. Okay, so you might have a little bit less of a risk of getting COVID or going to the hospital for COVID, but you're going to get cancer and you're going to get these weird cysts on your arm, and you're going to get a tumor on your leg and a tumor in your brain. So I still don't think it should be given to anyone, but I'm just giving you kind of what I think is going to transpire here and how this ACIP meeting is going to go.
Okay, so I know that this commitment to Senator Bill Cassidy keeps getting referenced, and we know that, Kennedy, that was reported when he was getting confirmed. Real quick, in 30 seconds, now that Trump has made his statement, does that not overcome any commitment that Bobby Kennedy made to Senator Cassidy?
It should. If he's got Trump's backing, and i.e. Susie Wiles, then he's got the runway. That shouldn't matter. And we got to expose Cassidy. I mean, Cassidy and Chris LaCivita and Reince Priebus and Rick Santorum and these guys taking money from Sarepta, who had a muscular dystrophy drug that killed 3 children, and then work with Laura Loomer and others to try to take out Venapricide. I mean, these people are the scum of the earth. And the money that they take just to make a quick buck, they're going to have to pay for at some point. But this story is unfolding, and I can't tell you how big of a deal Trump finally showing that he's willing to admit maybe possibly a mistake on this Operation Warp Speed.
I just want to make clear to my audience to make sure that they know that you were ousted from HHS for trying to keep the agency, the department, committed to the mandate they were given by voters in the 2024 election, and that was to pull the jabs and to make America healthy again. You did a great job, and we're appreciating you joining us today. Thanks so much, Great Delaney.
Talk soon. Thank you.
A disturbing new medical study has been released proving that which we here at The Absolute Truth have been saying for years, that also gives justification for pulling these jabs, that the mRNA jabs are health hazards. In fact, our friend Dr. Joseph Sansone has been saying they're literal bioweapons. I agree. The study found that, quote, since 2021, following widespread COVID-19 vaccination, oncologists and peer-reviewed case reports have noted a surge in aggressive cancers occurring post-vaccination. It goes on to assess that, quote, pregnancy-related outcomes showed an 81% miscarriage rate. 81%? That's unbelievable, with 26 out of 32 cases resulting in loss of pregnancy. And those weren't the only medical problems associated with this quote unquote vaccine. For instance, there was a high association between the vaccines and the outbreak of autoimmune diseases like psoriasis. I know a ton of people got autoimmune issues after taking the jabs. But the big one is that the so-called vaccines are basically cancer super spreaders. We're now joined by one of the leading authors of that recent and most disturbing study, Dr. Andrew Zivchik, and he joins us now. This is what we thought, but even to a greater degree, Doctor. Explain the study.
So, hi, Emerald. Thanks for having me on, first and foremost. So this is the first semi-comprehensive study, and I say that because nobody's really drawn together all of these lines of information across multiple subspecialties. Talks about ethics, military, legal considerations. It was collectively written by multiple individuals, Peter McCullough, some of the DoD whistleblowers like Edward Macy, Charles Rixey, Irene Mavroukakis, Paul Merrick Vila. And essentially what we wanted to do was show the pathway of how this vaccine was developed and then the harms that it's caused. And there's a lot of information in this study. First, we laid out the DMED data. That's the Defense Medical Epidemiological Database. Edward Macy, the U.S. Navy whistleblower, released that information using 2016 to 2020 baseline data as opposed to post-COVID information. He showed skyrocketing rates of problematic issues, including infective myocarditis, which rose by 168% in 2021, 122% in 2022. Digestive organ system cancers rose by 15%, then 30, then 46. Brain cancers rose 27% in 2021, 39% in 2022, 40% in 2023. And it just keeps going. Suicidal, homicidal ideation rose 45%, then 65, then 80, then 85 in 2024. Ed Macy also pointed out that these violated the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, the U.S. Constitution, the DoD exemption policies. It also had coercion to receive an emergency youth authorization, contravening U.S. Code 1107 and 1107A, which deals with informed consent, waivers, notification of military members. Moving forward, we looked at immune system dysfunction. Preliminary data by Maravik Vila, who is seeing a very large cohort of vaccine-injured patients, showed that 75% of her vaccine-injured patients are showing autoimmune markers like ANA positivity. 55% are showing objective signs of immunodeficiency. Now, they're showing IgG subclass deficiencies and T-cell dysfunction. And for simplicity, your IgG and immune globulins fight off bacteria, and your T cells are fighting off cancer and viruses, which may be the reason that these cancers are springing up. And no surprise, 90% of the people assessed have latent viral reactivation like Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, and latent Lyme infections from Borrelia. And that's consistent across multiple studies. In Peter McCullough's World of Cardiology, we looked up studies like Foxova, studied 99 million people. The investigators reported 510% increase in myocarditis following mRNA vaccination, 278% increase in acute disseminated encephalomyelitis, and a bunch of other things like Guillain-Barré. And a very similar study, Rahala, studied 85 million, came up with similar results, 240% increased risk of stroke, 199% increased risk of cardiac arrhythmia after the first dose, 286% increased risk of heart attack, 244% increased risk of coronary artery disease after the second dose. It's just a nightmare. We also felt the need to set the record straight on a couple of the pregnancy-related concerns. There was a landmark study called the Shimabukuro study, which was published in New England Journal of Medicine in April of 21. They reported that there was only a 12.6% miscarriage rate among vaccinated pregnant women. Now, the average miscarriage rate in the public is between 10 to 20%, so that showed that this was normal. And this was used as a bludgeon to basically silence the observed pregnancy issues from doctors on the front lines like James Thorpe. And this was just statistical hocus pocus. The majority of the women in the study, 700 out of 827 women, were vaccinated in the third trimester. And what that does is that creates a false dilution of miscarriage rates because it's outside of the window of first or early second trimester, where 80% of miscarriages occur. When you adjust for this, the first term and early second term miscarriages, it's actually 104 out of 127 women, an 82% miscarriage rate, right? And where that group should have seen between 10 and 20 based on statistics. Thorpe also compared adverse events post-COVID versus adverse events post-flu vaccine because we have so much data on that. Now, we measured this in the form of proportional reporting ratios, which are basically safety signals. And for reference, a safety signal is 1 or greater. We saw safety signals of 177 for miscarriages, 135 for stillbirth, 4,257 for menstrual abnormalities. And again, so a signal of 100 is a disaster. Speaking of Pfizer's trials, your last guest was speaking about the Pfizer trials. Pfizer's own clinical data evaluated the vaccine in 324 low-risk pregnant women. 161 vaccinated, 163 received what they called as the placebo. The vaccinated group showed an increased newborn complication risk, 100% rise in lower APGAR scores, meaning sicker babies at birth, 80% increased neonatal jaundice, 70% increase in congenital malformations, and 310% increase in congenital anomalies with developmental delay at 6 months. And this was in the low risk patients, meaning high risk is much worse. We addressed surges in cancer, cytokine storms. We elucidated major theoretical concerns with aberrant protein production, which is kind of my world. And just for reference, they used methylpseudouridine in these vaccines. That creates slippage and stalling at the ribosomes. That produces aberrant proteins. Aberrant proteins essentially cause a massive amount of problems. The lipid nanoparticle, the mRNA, the spike protein, they were all known to be toxic. They were all known for decades to be problematic. So we address all these things in the paper. We also address Nuremberg, Helsinki, all of these things. And one thing that we really focused in on, and this is actually in the beginning of the paper, SARS-CoV-2, both the virus and the vaccine, they both display multiple genomic features that indicate laboratory manipulation, such as things like the furin cleavage site. It's a rare insertion in coronaviruses. It's absent in SARS-like viruses found in nature. It activates the spike protein. It potentiates ACE2 binding. It increases the immune response, including things like IgG4 class switching, which leads to increased vulnerability for cancers, neurodegenerative disease, and these are linked again to furin cleavage, to vaccine responses. These things like furin cleavage sites, HIV inserts, immunological dysregulation, chimeric viral construction, which means recombination, these are all features that are displayed in COVID. And all these features are described as project goals within the Diffuse proposal. And that was an instruction guide of how to develop bioweapons that EcoHealth Alliance submitted to DARPA in March of 2018. We know that SARS is a target for bioweapons development. NATO military specialists rate it as the fourth most attractive pathogen among 34 known or potential bioweapons. So it is what it is at this point. We discussed the future of biologics. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we're running out of time, that's so much information, and we'll probably have to come back and, really break it down. But when Trump is asking for the data, right, and for people to see the data, this is the data that he needs to see and people need to see, I would say, Dr. Zhuzhets.
This is the data. Yes, this is the data that he needs to look at.
This is the data. I hope it makes his way to his desk. Thank you so much, Dr. Z, for everything. We'll keep talking about it. Please come back. Let's break it down in more detail. Dr. Zhuzhets, it's always good to see you. And I know you can see it on your website, which is listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much, Dr. Z.
Absolutely. God bless, Emerald.
And moving on, another published medical publication, another PubMed publication in July has similar findings to Dr. Z's recent scientific paper. Here's a Twitter user sharing the results of the July paper, saying, quote, nearly 300,000 people tracked for 30 months mRNA vaccines, increased risk of any cancer by 23%, breast by 34%, bladder by 62%, and colorectal cancer by 35%. Joining us now is Corey Hillis to talk about this. Corey, sorry, we're tight on time, but I did want to get to this because it relates to what Dr. Zhuzhets was just talking about, right? Explain us what you're finding and how it relates to EMF.
We're talking about reproductive problems, right?
Yes.
And EMFs.
Yes.
So first of all, people need to know that EMFs are coming from your cell phone, Wi-Fi router, cell phone towers, Starlink, everything Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in your house. Okay, so it's everywhere. You can't escape it. Right now, you have to, do your best to mitigate it or to avoid it, or find a solution like ours that works. Now, the list of symptoms that you can get from this are long, and I'm not going to go spend a lot of time, but fatigue problems, serious immune system disorders, Alzheimer's, cancer, heart problems, like a long laundry list, including what we're going to get into now is reproductive ability. And this is the one that worries me the very most. The reason it worries me so much is there are thousands of studies. This is more swept under the rug than the smoking industry, by the way. There are thousands of studies that people can go look at and summaries of by non-biased places all over the world, including paid for by the federal government, state governments, European Union. I can go on and on with this stuff. This is so proven. But the evidence not only suggests that sperm count is being lessened, that sperm motility is being hurt big time. Men in this country and every modern society now produce less than 50% of the sperm compared to when I was growing up. There's no alarm bells going off for this. This is crazy. All the studies suggest that the EMFs are doing this. But the biggest concern that I have is there's strong evidence by experts that says that the reproductive ability of people in modern society now may be permanent, that we may have children growing up now that never have the ability to produce kids. And I'm not talking about a small percentage of kids. I'm talking about major amounts of kids, okay? So my favorite place to go to talk about the subject is Barry Trower, Barrie, Tower with the second letter being an R, Trower. If you look up him, if anybody's interested in this subject and wants to be blown away by how serious this could be, he's a retired military expert physicist from the Secret Service in Britain. Part of his job was to use EMFs, the frequencies that come off of Bluetooth Wi-Fi stuff that we put in our house willingly. Part of his job was to use these frequencies as weapons. Okay, so he knows better than anybody what this stuff can do. And if you Google his name and then you search for Wi-Fi in schools, so Barry Trower Wi-Fi in schools, you're going to come up with a video that we also have on our website and our landing page here, if you search around for it, of him explaining what I can explain to you now. I have a baby girl, she's 5 now. When my wife was pregnant with her, okay, her eggs are getting 10 times the amount of DNA damage than we are. We're getting DNA damage. So if you don't have the symptoms I named, you're getting DNA damage, you're getting free radical damage in your cells, you're getting an imbalance of charges in your cells. You are getting damage. It may not be showing up as a symptom that you see, but you're getting it. Inside the fetus, inside what becomes the hundreds of thousands of eggs that a female should be born with, okay, they're getting 10 times the DNA damage. And that's not the bad news. The bad news is they don't have, especially the first trimester, they don't have the ability to heal that DNA damage. So you're getting DNA damage to eggs, or what become eggs, that doesn't heal. So these kids are getting born possibly sterile, minimum, with a very hard ability to have kids like they normally would if they weren't exposed to the cell phone, the laptop on your lap when you're pregnant, and all the other stuff now. We're getting exposed to this stuff. So they're going to be born. We're not going to know how bad it is for these girls until, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, or 40 years down the road when they have kids.
This is devastating. I desperately want to be a grandmother. So this is terrifying news. We need to share this with everyone, and you can mitigate the effects. Corey does have a product to mitigate the effects. He's the president of EMF Solutions. So if you're looking to try to counter some of what he's talking about, go to EMF Solutions and see what they have to offer. I'm sorry we're a little tight on time today, Corey, but thank you so much for raising this very, very important issue with our audience. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a very big DC Live. Alison Steinberg has an exclusive interview related to Letitia James that you will not want to miss. That's it for me. I'll see you later this evening at 8 p.m.